JD Vance had a lot to say about immigrants during the vice presidential debate.
So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. We brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels.
But none of it was true. In a very short amount of time, Donald Trump's running mate accused immigrants of taking low-paying jobs, somehow using that paycheck to buy up all the housing supply, overcrowding schools with their kids, and committing crimes at a rate twice as high as U.S. citizens. I'm going to break down these claims as fast as I can. Stay with me. A little over 11 million unauthorized immigrants live in the U.S. who have moved here over the past 30 plus years. Not the 3.5 years since Biden's been in office. 500,000 of those are DACA recipients, and another million are kids that came with their families. Undocumented immigrants do make on average 35% less than their documented counterparts. But that doesn't mean that if they're deported, employers will suddenly fill their positions at a higher pay rate. And we know this here from experience. Arizona's undocumented population fell by over 100,000 people after SB 1070 was passed in 2010. But less than 10% of their jobs were filled by authorized U.S. residents or citizens. And because there were less consumers, there were actually fewer jobs available. Mortgages for undocumented immigrants almost never happen. So what? They're paying cash with their less than minimum wage paycheck? Corporate investors own 1 in 3 single-family homes in Arizona. It's not that complicated. Children of immigrant families only make up about 10% of all K-12 public schools. These classrooms aren't overcrowded because there are too many students. It's because Republicans like Vance have defunded public education and refused to raise teacher pay, so there aren't enough educators. Vance accused Harris of allowing Mexican drug cartels to smuggle guns to the U.S., which is completely backwards. In 2023, 7 times as many guns were seized from the U.S. to Mexico than the other way around. Mexico doesn't even allow the manufacturing of the weapons being used in those shootings, and doesn't make very many consumer guns in general because of their firearms laws. 0.02% of immigrants were convicted of a crime in 2023, compared to 2% of U.S. citizens. For a violent crime, that decimal moves over to 0.002%, or only 1,300 immigrants, compared to 1.2 million, or 0.3% of citizens. Again, this is more of a U.S. citizen thing. 90% of all fentanyl in the U.S. is brought in by citizens through legal ports of entry, and this flood of fentanyl is actually drying up. As a result of efforts by the Biden-Harris administration, fewer pills are being brought to the U.S. Overdoses are down. And health departments have actually reported a decrease in treating people for overdose and an increase in treating people for withdrawal, because people aren't able to get it. Biden paused deportations during his first 3 months in office because the previous administration was throwing people out of the country in violation of international law and committing human rights violations. Since then, he's deported about as many people as Trump did, while at the same time easing the pathway to citizenship for long-term residents. As for asylum fraud, it's statistically non-existent. Since 2018, 0.4% of applications were fraudulent, and those are largely because Border Patrol needs technological upgrades that Harris supported and Vance voted against.